Hey everyone, this is Lucid. I'm going to do a video on how to make Let's Plays, and the reason is because it took me a while, and unfortunately those of you who've been subscribed to my channel for a long time know that it took me a while to figure out how to actually record where the audio isn't completely horrible. And yeah, there's kind of a lot to talk about. I'm going to talk mostly about the software. I'll talk a little bit about the hardware. But I think we're going to start off. I'm going to talk about the actual recording software you can use. There's a bunch of things you can use for free. One of them is OBS, and I've tried that. There's a few other you can look up, but there's kind of a good number of free options. What I end up using is Action. I had to pay for it, which, it's not too expensive. I think it's like $30 or something. But yeah, it's... The reasons I ended up picking this particular software and things you want to look at when you're picking your own recording software to use is there's a few things you want for in-game recording. One is you want to be able to move your mouse and see your mouse, and a lot of times, especially when you're doing games, your mouse will be disabled in the recording. So even though you see it on your screen, when the recording software is recording the game, the mouse is missing. So if you go back and watch some of my earliest videos, I think like the M.A. Airmore video was one of my first ones. You'll see that I'm clicking, but you can't see my mouse. Just things happen. So anyway, that's something to look for as a feature. Is the mouse recording enabled? And in Action it is, but in other various softwares it is not. And some it's not an option where you can enable it. Another thing that's pretty important in the recording software is can it record your voice and the game sounds to separate audio tracks? And this is actually kind of a rare feature. A lot of times it will, when you have a video, basically there's going to be the visual part, which gets recorded to one part of the video file, and the audio part, which gets recorded. You could think of it as an MP3 to another part of the video file. And a lot of times there's just kind of one MP3 for the audio, and your voice gets mixed in with the game sounds. The problem is, especially if you don't have a great mic or you don't have a great setup, or it's not super well balanced, or you're learning, as you'll find out is often the case when you start recording, your voice may not be very well balanced as it gets recorded with the game sounds, and you'll want to edit them separately. In order to do that, you really need to have separate audio tracks for the game sounds and for your voice. And that's the main reason I chose Action, is that it allows for a game soundtrack and then a voice soundtrack. And then after the game, you can extract the audio files, and I'll show you how I do it. I'm going to kind of go through a sample workflow in this. You can extract those files, and once the extraction is done, you can edit them separately and then combine them back into the final video. Now, I know some of the people that do this for fun, they don't want to do any of the real editing, and a lot of times that's why kind of like the voice quality is low or something like that. But anyway, I'm just going to show you how I did it, and honestly, I was kind of trying to do it to learn how to do videos in general. I think I want to start another YouTube channel that does non-game content, which I hope you will tune into that when I finally do post it. But yeah, so anyway, that's super important. You'll see I do have kind of a slightly long workflow, especially when you're starting out and you don't know how to do it. But once you get the hang of it, it probably takes me in total maybe 10 minutes of video to do all the editing. Anyway, so we'll get into it. This is the software I use. It's really easy. There's different modes you can put it in. This isn't going to be a tutorial on how to do it. The things that I'll say are kind of important. You want to have it in game mode. There's like the idea of recording separate audio tracks for voice and your mic. You need to set up. There's a few options you need to get set up in here. But in general, it's pretty intuitive. It's not very tough. What's also important is the output of this. Once you're done with recording, it's usually in an uncompressed format, an AVI format. And what this means is it's going to take up a huge amount of hard drive space, like sometimes 50 to 100 gigabytes per video, even for like a 20-minute video, if you have kind of high settings. And if you lower the settings too much, the quality is going to suffer. The way you get the video size small is by encoding it into like an efficient video format, like they have in DVDs and things like that, like an MP4 format. So we'll talk about how you do that. But anyway, just know this is the software that I kind of like, and there's other ones that you can do for free. But anyway, this is, if you don't mind spending a few dollars, this is a great one to get you started. And you mostly get it for two kind of key features. Well, some of them also crash, which is a problem. It's very stable, doesn't crash. It shows your mouse, and you can do dual audio tracks for voice and game sounds. Okay, so we're going to kind of pretend that we did some recording. In this case, I think for this one, you hit F9 to start recording. So, yeah, so we've recorded something. I actually have recorded a Conquest of Elysium game. And once you've recorded it, the next step is you need to edit it. And the program I really like, and this is free, is Audacity. And it's really, really good. And there's a ton of stuff you can do. What I'm going to do is, okay, there's another program that you're going to need, because this thing right here, which you can see is 79 gigabytes, is the output of the recording session. And once you're done with the recording, you're going to have this file, and you need to get the audio parts extracted from it. There's a program you can get called DxTory, which I'll put a link to below. And if you install it, you will have this option when you right-click on a video file, which is Extract Audio Stream. And this actually takes a while to do. It's going to take, you only have to click it, but then you have to kind of wait 5 to 10 minutes for it to extract the audio stream, depending on the size of your video. But you'll end up with these .wav files, which is an audio file. Or no, an ST file. Oh, it's a WAV file. Anyway, so those get popped out, and then you drag those over here, and you put it in Audacity. And this top one here is the game sounds, and this bottom one you can see is the voice. And the peaks and valleys and stuff here, like you can see, there's way more higher amplitude in the WAV file. So this is louder than my voice. So if we play it, I think we're gonna make more Troll Forest. You can see that it's very painful to listen to. Yeah, and like battles, especially in Dominions, get very, very loud parts as all the weapons fire, and it'll basically peak out. Like you can see here is a very loud part, and like this is a loud part, and basically it's going to just like horribly distort the sound, and it's going to burn your ears. So what you need to do to fix this is we need to. There's a few things you have to do to basically control this. The easiest one is basically you're just going to go to Effects. Once you select this, you're going to go to Effects, and you're going to Normalize, right? And this is going to kind of take it where the max amplitude is -1 dB. So you can do that. But that's not going to really balance out like the tops and the bottoms. And then, here, I'll do it real quick. I don't want to sit here. Some of these things take longer than others, so I'm just going to tell you. But anyway, you can do Normalize. This will take a hot second. And once this is done, okay, you can see it's taking a little bit of time. Now, there's a fast way to do this, and I'll show you it. But you can see it's kind of, the peaks got a little narrower. Then what you can do, you can either do the slider here where you drag this down to make it smaller. Or you can do Effects. You can go to Amplify, and you can go to like, in this case, we probably want to do like -12 amps or something. Maybe even more, like probably this much. And this will really narrow this down. And so now you can see we can control the game sound. So if I come to some place where we're talking and where the game sounds are going. So this big army has started to move south, which is good. We're going. You can see that it's much more balanced out. Anyway, so that's kind of important. Now, once this is done, you basically can put this into what's called a chain. And I'll click on chains. Chains are basically macros. So I have 2 chains that I made for my editing, and this is so if you do multiple videos, it makes it way faster. This one is for the game sounds, and this is every time I work on the game soundtrack, I do this, and basically it does a normalize. It does a dynamics and compress, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And then built into the normalize, there is a way to apply. Oh, I don't know where it. Okay, here it is. This final normalize after the other one is going to give it a minus 20 decibels, which is going to. That's what's basically going to lower the volume. If you actually look at this and you just pause the screen, you can take these settings and copy and paste them into your own Audacity, and you can basically copy this. And I'll flash up this is the one I use for the default voice. This one's a little different. Basically, we're going to do noise reduction first, and then we're going to normalize, and then we're going to do equalization, which is going to affect the pitch of my voice, etc. And then we're going to do compress and dynamics. And this is actually a separate one you have to download. There's two. I'll just show you real quick. We'll do the voice. Noise reduction is actually really easy on Audacity. What you do is you just zoom in here and you select a portion of your track that has no noise in it, right? So, or you're not talking. And then you come to Effect and you click Noise Reduction. You click Get Noise Profile. And then you click here and you do Noise Reduction again. And before we had clicked Noise Profile with the portion of the silent track selected, but now we've selected this whole thing, and I've gone back and clicked Noise Reduction again, and we just click it. And usually the default settings are fine. Now this is going to take a while. We're not going to sit here and kind of wait for it to happen. But when it does happen, it's going to kind of get rid of some of the chatter when you're not talking. You usually do not need to do it on the game sounds since there's no noise, since you're not really recording or picking up weird things on a microphone. The only things that are in here are things the computer generated, which usually don't really have noise. So yeah, anyway, you do the noise reduction, then you can do the same normalization, which is again here, and you just do this. And then what you want to come in and do is equalization. And I don't know if I don't really have my setup loaded here. If you go back to the video where I had the chain popped up, you can see what I did. But basically the way audio works is the higher ends add crispness, and the lower ends of the audio, like the deeper parts, add bass, like in fullness to your voice. The middle parts actually add like a muddiness. And so a lot of times what you want to do is you can go up to like 6, and then you can kind of bring this down to like -3 or something, right? And then you bring maybe at the, like right at 1,000 hertz. Okay, kind of bring this here, and then at 1,000 hertz, we can kind of bring it back up to here. And something like this actually will end up, and this isn't exactly what I have, and there's other tutorials you can look at for how to do this, but I'm kind of trying to do all in one. This will, especially if you have a male voice, I haven't tested it with females, like maybe females don't want to raise their bass up so much, but this will basically give you a more richer sounding voice, so that's more pleasant to listen to. So you can do that. You don't have to. That's totally a step you can skip. It will sound good if you don't do it. So that's equalization. And then the next one's actually pretty important, and this is one that does not get done very much. You can do compressor here, and the default things are kind of okay. And what a compressor is going to do is it's going to look at your audio track and it's going to say, hey, we have some periods where we're really loud and we have some periods where we're kind of quiet. Let's take the quiet periods and make them a little louder, and let's take the loud periods and make them a little quieter. And what it will end up doing, and especially if you have like some really big peaks in your video where it gets really loud, it will prevent, just when you do normalization and some other things, it'll basically prevent other parts of the video from getting loud. So this is some way to kind of balance out and bring together the loud parts of the video and the quiet parts of the video and just even it out. And it doesn't do it so much that, you know, the really, really quiet parts, like when you're trailing off a word, get made to be the same volume as when you're, you know, shouting something. So it really does a good job at balancing it out. The thing is this particular one has some problems with it, the compressor. And the one you really want to get, and you can just Google it, is this Compress Dynamics 1.2.6. And this is basically like just a free downloadable kind of mod thing that somebody made for this. I forget exactly how you install it, but it was pretty easy. You don't have to get this. You can do it with the compressor. The compressor thing will make your videos way better. But if you're doing it, I do suggest this. And you can see there's a bunch of things you set up. These are the settings I have. I think they work pretty well. They may not be quite the exact same settings as I had before, but this is easy. You basically just click OK. It's going to take a while. We can kind of watch it. You'll see what it does. But basically, it's going to even out the high and low periods, and it's going to kind of fill up the audio. So, okay, we'll wait for this to finish, because this is really important for audio editing. So you can see it kind of filled it out. Now, I didn't do noise reduction, and because I didn't do noise reduction, it made these parts of the video, well, let me click solo here, very noisy, so you can hear that noise. So anyway, we don't want to do that. So that's why it's very important you do noise reduction before you do. You can do it after too. I find after doesn't work as well. Like you could select this and do noise reduction on it. You select this as the noise you want to get rid of, and then you do noise reduction. But I have found you kind of don't want to do that. You want to do noise reduction before. So again, going back to the chains, this is the default voice. You do normalize, equalization, and then compress dynamics, and then you're basically done. Yeah. And so anyway, once you kind of have these things in, it's actually really quick. All I do is I select this when I come in. I do chains, apply chain, default game sounds, and then I click apply to current project. And then what I'll come down is I'll select a blank portion, and this used to be blank, right? I'll click on noise reduction. I'll do get noise profile, and then I click on this whole thing, and once I have this whole thing selected, I go to chains, apply chain, and then I click on this one for default voice, and I click apply to current project, and it'll take 2 minutes, and I'll usually be doing something else or watching a video while it's taking those 2 minutes to apply it, and then we'll be done. And then after that, you can just export it. I'll just click export to WAV, right? And in this case, we were working on a COE thing, so I think we'll go to right here. I think we were in this first episode, and you can just name it whatever you want. Like in this case, I'm calling it track 1. And actually, I'm going to pause it and do the actual right thing here, as I probably should have done. Actually, we'll do it together. You can skip forward through this if you want to. Because actually, I do want to go through the video editing. We'll kind of make this video together. Or I'll show you how we would make it together. Okay, so this one, I'm just going to click it, and I do chains, apply chain, and then I'm going to click default game sounds, and I'm going to pause it while it goes. So you can see it's going to do the first one, and that's going to complete, and then it's going to start doing the second one. And I'm going to pause it right now, and I'll unpause it when it's done. Okay, and you can see that it finished. And by the way, since we're talking about how you record it, if you do end up using Action, you can hit Shift F9 and it will pause. Coming down here, we're going to basically do what I had said we're going to do. I'm going to select this portion. I'm going to click noise reduction as so. And then I'm going to click here, and we are going to click over here on chains, and we're going to apply this chain like this, and it's going to go through and do all the things, and I'm going to pause it. Okay, and with that, it finished. And so you can see when I'm going to zoom out. One of the things, if you want to zoom on this, you hit the control key and like the wheel on your mouse, and you can zoom out. So you can see we now have a very compressed audio stream where there's not really quiet parts and noisy parts. You can see the parts where I'm not talking, it's quiet. Like 0, which is what you want. You don't want to have noise. And the parts where I'm not talking, you can see the points where I am talking, it's nice and compressed, and we have a good pretty high decibel output here. Yeah. So anyway, this is pretty solid. Then what you do is we're just going to go ahead and export it. I like to do it as a WAV. You can do it as an MP3. We'll just say track 1. That's what I normally call it. And then we'll save it. If you want to add audio, like a music thing, which sometimes I do, you click on File here. You can just add, or you can, however it is, you can drag it in. You can click on File, Import Audio. And you can pull in some music from the free YouTube library or something like that to give some background music. Anyway, yeah, so now we have a balanced out WAV file, and I'll just give you a quick preview of kind of what this is going to sound like. Dragon. Okay, it's a little loud here. Dragon, and then only send him in against non-mage supported armies, and maybe whoops. If we get... Yeah, sorry about that. Where the hell? Playback speed? Okay, I don't really know how to do this. I could probably edit it in the... No, I probably don't want to. We'll just... I'll just come down and do it here. You can kind of listen.
Dragon, and then only send him in against non-mage supported armies, and maybe if we get very, very lucky...
So that's actually okay. I actually don't really totally... Okay, I think I had over-reduced this, so I think that kind of messed up the balance.
Dragon, and then only send him in against...
Anyway, you get the idea. And what you would find is when you pull this into a game... when you pull this into a video, it would probably be fine with the default settings that I have right here. You may want to reduce the sound of this one just a little bit before you do the export. So anyway, that's good. We're now going to move into the final part, which is the actual video editing. Whoops. The software that I'm using right here is CyberLink Director, or Power Director. This is not free. You have to pay for it. There are free things you can use, but this is probably one of the things where you're going to pay for something. The other thing that I use sometimes is Adobe After Effects, and then Adobe Premiere. After Effects is not really so much for game editing unless you're doing really complicated stuff with graphics, but Premiere kind of is. You can kind of do long video sequences and add things together, but they're kind of overkill, and the processing actually takes a lot longer than it does with Power Director. So anyway, I kind of use Power Director. We're going to come in here. I'm going to go to my trolls. We'll bring in these two. A lot of times I also take a thumbnail and put it in. I'll show you how you would do that. I'm going to actually kind of go and delete the thumbnail. When you get in here, we now have, this is the audio track that was recorded with the game. I need to get rid of it because we have a different audio track that I want to use. So you're going to link, unlink video and audio. And now we can select on the audio and just delete the audio. And then you just come and drag the track in like this. And if you hit Control again, a lot of times Control and mouse wheel on a lot of these video editing things or any audio editing things is going to like zoom in or out the time wheel. You can see they line up perfectly. If you want to add like a thumbnail, you do want to make sure the thumbnail that you make is about the same size as the screen, though a lot of times you can kind of fix that in here. I'll just, well... Okay. All right, I clicked on before just the little kind of inspiration image I used when I painted this. But anyway, you can just click and drag it down here, and this one will overwrite the previous one, and you can just click here to adjust how long you want it to play. I'm going to delete this, obviously, because it was not the one I did for this game. And basically, that's it. All you just do is you come over here and you click on Produce, and then you pick out what you're going to name it, and then you save it. So this is a kind of easy way to do your audio editing. And yeah, anyway, I hope you guys found that helpful. If you're thinking about starting a YouTube channel or putting up a few Let's Plays, it will definitely help with the volume. Oh, the other thing I remembered I was going to talk about is for audio editing, hardware is kind of important. I don't have like a really fancy setup. I do have kind of a cheaper Yeti microphone, which is pretty good. I tried a condenser mic for a little bit, but it was kind of too sensitive. The Yetis are pretty good, I think, for kind of entry-level stuff like what I'm doing. And I have like a little mount. You don't want it to be touching the table or anything like that. So it's on kind of like a little arm mount with a little thing that keeps it from having vibrations go into it. But I mean, it's not fancy. It was like a $10 thing. And yeah, the other important thing is while you're playing, you do want to have headphones on, because if you have the game music playing and feeding into your microphone, that's going to cause problems. So headphones, and then an okay mic, and then using Audacity, you can basically, I won't say make it sound professional, but you can make it sound pretty damn good. And definitely won't bother people that are listening to it. So yeah, anyway, that's how you do it. And I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope one of you uses this guide and puts up a Let's Play. So thank you all. Bye.